The one coming up, should I know?
Oh, the genie of love. If you rub me right, I might let you know what's happening.
Pause.
Monetize.
Oh, God, that was crazy.
Big pause.
They got me early.
Yeah.
Kennedy William Gordy, aka Rockwell, born March 15th, 1964. In the neon-lit chaos of 1984, where pop music was dominated by an untouchable Michael Jackson, a fresh voice emerged from the shadows singing about paranoia and unforeseen forces lurking behind each turn. The eerie, synth-driven anthem "Somebody's Watching Me" sends shivers through the airwaves, its haunting chorus etched into the minds of millions. A name that seemed built for greatness, armed with the ultimate cosign, Michael Jackson himself. For a moment, it felt like a star had been born. Here was a newcomer who managed to do the unthinkable, ride the wave of Thriller-era Michael Jackson without being overshadowed. The song became a massive hit, climbing to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and dominating radio rotations. Its music video, drenched in horror-inspired visuals, only added to the mystique. The son of Motown Records founder Berry Gordy, Rockwell had access to an industry few could dream of, yet he crafted his identity as an outsider, an unknown figure watching from the edge of fame. But there was always something different about Rockwell. He was a Gordy, yet an outcast. The privilege was there, but so was the distance. Unlike his father's hand-picked Motown stars, he wasn't groomed for success, nor did he carry the same polish as Marvin Gaye or the Jackson 5. Instead, he presented himself as a self-made enigma, adopting the name Rockwell to avoid accusations of nepotism. And yet, that name alone wouldn't have placed him in the orbit of the biggest pop star in the world. Michael Jackson's involvement in Somebody's Watching Me was no accident. It was a direct result of Rockwell's family ties, and that connection made his rapid disappearance from music all the more puzzling. One-hit wonders are a dime a dozen, but Rockwell's case was different. He wasn't an ordinary artist who struck gold once and faded into obscurity. He had the resources, the relationships, and the perfect launch pad to solidify his place in music history. But just as quickly as he appeared, he was gone. By the late 80s, his name had all but vanished from the industry, leaving behind only whispers of what could have been. A man who had every opportunity in the world and let it slip through his fingers. What happened? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC, StuntedGrowthMusic. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Rockwell is a singer from Detroit, Michigan, born into music royalty as the son of Berry Gordy, the legendary founder of Motown Records, a label responsible for launching the careers of artists like Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, and the Supremes. But despite growing up surrounded by icons, Rockwell's journey wasn't a smooth ride to stardom. Unlike many second-generation stars, he wasn't handed a music career on a silver platter. In fact, Berry Gordy wasn't initially supportive of his son's musical ambitions, forcing Rockwell to prove himself outside his father's direct influence. To distance himself from the Gordy name, he adopted the moniker Rockwell and managed to land a deal with Motown, not because of his bloodline, but by submitting a demo that impressed executives. From the start, he wanted to be recognized as an artist in his own right, not just Berry Gordy's son, a task that proved to be more difficult than ever. Stunt number 1, a manufactured breakthrough. Rockwell's big break came with Somebody's Watching Me, a song that seemed destined for success the moment it was recorded. Its paranoid lyrics, eerie synth-driven beat, and unmistakable voice of Michael Jackson on the chorus made it an instant classic. But behind the scenes, the song's creation was less about artistic destiny and more about family connections. Rockwell's deal with Motown was already unusual. Most artists had to fight for a contract, while he had direct line to the top. Yet, even with his record deal, he needed something bigger to stand out. Enter Michael Jackson. The King of Pop's involvement was no coincidence. Rockwell was close friends with Michael's younger brother Jermaine, who had once been married to Berry Gordy's daughter Hazel. This connection made it easier for Rockwell to approach Michael, who agreed to sing the chorus as a favor. With Michael Jackson's golden touch, Somebody's Watching Me became a massive hit. The song skyrocketed up the Billboard charts, peaking at number 2 and achieving platinum status. But this was both a gift and a curse. The track's success wasn't attributed to Rockwell's talent alone, most listeners believing it was a Michael Jackson song with Rockwell as an afterthought. This created a major problem. He had built his name off a song that people only cared about because of someone else. Instead of solidifying himself as a solo artist, Rockwell became trapped in the shadow of his famous guest feature. His second single, Obscene Phone Caller, reached the top 40 but lacked the same magic. Without Michael Jackson's presence, the excitement faded. He had been given an easy entry into the music industry, but he was already struggling to prove he belonged. The spotlight was slipping away and there was no plan to get it back. Stunt number 2, a style that couldn't last. Rockwell's music was built on a gimmick, paranoia. Somebody's Watching Me was the perfect storm of eerie synths, a haunting narrative, and Michael Jackson's hook that made it feel larger than life. But when the smoke cleared, there was a major problem. Rockwell's entire artistic identity revolved around a single concept. His follow-up album, Captured in 1985, tried to recreate the eerie, storytelling vibe that made his debut single a hit, but the formula was already wearing thin. The lead single, Obscene Phone Caller, was another paranoia-driven song that performed modestly, peaking at number 35 on the Billboard Hot 100. But beyond that, nothing stuck. The rest of the album lacked direction, and without Michael Jackson's star power, the mainstream audience simply didn't care. The truth was, Rockwell wasn't a versatile artist. His voice was distinct, but not particularly strong, and his songwriting leaned too heavily on gimmicks rather than universal appeal. Unlike other 1980s stars who adapted their sound with each album, Rockwell remained in a creative box. By the time he released his third album, The Genie, in 1986, his style had already felt outdated. The album flopped, failing to produce a single charting hit. At this point, Rockwell's weaknesses as an artist were impossible to ignore. His initial success had been lightning in a bottle, dependent on the right timing, the right cosign, and the right gimmick. But music was evolving, and his paranoid storytelling approach didn't have longevity. The music industry had already moved on, and Rockwell had no real artistic foundation to keep himself relevant. With 3 albums behind him and no new hits to his name, Rockwell's career was unraveling. He had entered the music through the right connections, but they couldn't keep him there. Stunt number 3, the weight of nepotism without the benefits. From the beginning, Rockwell fought to distance himself from his father's legacy. He chose his stage name specifically to avoid accusations of nepotism, insisting that he had earned his Motown deal on his own. But in reality, his last name was both a blessing and a curse, one he never truly escaped. Motown was once a hit-making machine, but by the end of the 80s, it was losing its dominance. New stars were emerging outside the label's traditional R&B and soul mold, and even legends like Stevie Wonder and Smokey Robinson struggled to keep up with the changing trends. Rockwell, despite his best efforts to act as an outsider, was still a Motown act, and the label's fading power only hurt his chances to stay relevant. Even worse, his attempt to carve his own path without the industry backfired. While he didn't want to be seen as the privileged son of Berry Gordy, he also didn't fully embrace the perks of his lineage. Unlike other second-generation stars who leaned into their connections to secure longevity, Rockwell had no strong industry allies beyond his initial cosigns. He didn't collaborate with top-tier producers, nor did he cultivate relationships with rising stars. His desire for independence left him isolated, and when his sales declined, Motown had no reason to keep pushing him. By 1986, his career was effectively over. His third album, The Genie, barely made a sound upon release, and Motown quietly let him go. Without industry allies and without a new sound to reinvent himself, Rockwell had nothing left to keep him afloat. He had once stood on the edge of superstardom, bolstered by his family's connections and the biggest pop star in the world. But when it came time to stand on his own, he had no foundation. His career had been an illusion propped up by borrowed fame. When the illusion shattered, there was nothing left but silence. All in all, Rockwell, after disappearing from the music industry, faded into obscurity, his name only resurfacing when Somebody's Watching Me is referred in pop culture. While other 80s artists found ways to reinvent themselves, Rockwell seemed content to retreat from the spotlight. Unlike his Motown predecessors who built lasting legacies, he left behind only a single hit, one remembered more for its guest feature than him. Then in 2018, Rockwell's name made headlines again, but for all the wrong reasons. He was arrested in Hollywood for allegedly assaulting a woman with a chair at the Magic Castle Hotel. The incident led to legal issues, a stark contrast to the young artist who had once stood on the brink of pop stardom. In the end, Rockwell's story is one of missed opportunities. He had every advantage, industry access, family connections, and the ultimate cosign, but still he disappeared, watching his own career vanish from existence. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth Music, and I'm out.